November 2nd with Guy Finley. We're going to get started in just very shortly, but for those of you who might be new, I want to just give you the layout of today's class. Guy will speak for about an hour, and then we will go into a question and answers where you can talk directly to Guy or write directly to Guy, depending on what platform you're on, and ask questions or share something about what you've seen about your inner life with Guy. So that'll be right around in about an hour. And we go for about an hour and a half, thereabouts. So stay with us the whole time. It's always a great time together to be able to study these truthful ideas. And there's never a disappointment when we stay together and learn. And so I think without any further ado, if you do have any technical problems, by the way, just write on the chat boxes or the question box, and Kate will help you behind the scenes if you need that. We have a nice room full of people here in Southern Oregon, and I think we're almost ready to go. So Guy, if you want to come on. There he is.
I'm here.
Okay. Shall I read the topic and key lesson?
Please.
Okay. The topic for today is incarnate these living commandments and realize the divine love that never dies. Here's this morning's key lesson, or today's. Here is a great spiritual paradox. None can hope to know the truth of their divine individuality until they have realized their all-inclusive similarity with everyone they meet. All right, Guy, I'll hand it to you.
Thanks, Doug. Just making a couple small adjustments here on my computer screen. We are, for the first time since we have arrived in Southern Oregon, we're streaming live from the new offices, and there's a small group of people here. And we're still going to be using the, I don't know exactly what it is, my computer instead of cameras. So everybody bear with us if there's a few glitches, so forth and so on, and I will do my best to address you and the people that are in the room simultaneously. And if we fail at that, we fail.
We'll improve that as we go.
And we will improve that as we go. Mm-hmm. Kate just gave me an electric shock from my collar that you can't see. I want to make one comment before I get into this material. And I have, honestly, every once in a while, as is true, it happens that a certain idea for a story will come to me. And my stories are very similar to the parables that have been told through time, that are designed to convey at once to the individuals who are listening to it something that is greater than the mind by itself can grasp, the heart can conceive of by itself, let alone the body incorporate. I have a story like that today, and I want to set it up with a couple words. Imagine a woman, and she's talking with her friends, and her conversation goes something like this. What are you going to do today, Harriet? And Harriet lays out, and then what about you, Margaret? And Margaret says, well, first I'm having lunch with a couple of the friends at the club, and then I have some shopping to do, and then a little Pilates, and then meditation, and then I'm going to go home and make dinner. And I can tell you that while that may be the best the individual can do in the moment, when we treat our spiritual life with the same amount of care that we do for everything else that consumes us on a daily basis, we have nothing and get nothing. It's so easy to make things rote. It's so easy to have things be mechanical that we forget there actually is something that is sacred. We're so disconnected with what is possible in terms of a relationship with the divine because we're so busy delivering ourselves into the hands of this world that we don't even know it's happened to us. Then nothing is special because everything has become routine for us and part of our daily process, where we hope at the end of all that processing we can wind out with some kind of peace, and it never occurs, because peace belongs to one order of being. Peace that you see on this planet is not peace. It's the manifestation of a series of compromises, a series of negotiations that human beings make so that they can live uninterrupted without problems that cause them pain for a few moments or so. So I want to say that, please, when we're meeting, don't take it casually. Don't take it casually. Nothing is more serious, because nothing is more important than however we're able to glean a certain understanding from insights that are produced and given here. That's what's important, because the insight changes how we see things. And as we learn to change how we see things, lo and behold, the world we see begins to change. Something I was just talking to a few of the students about. So let's get ready. Nice deep breath. I'm glad that you're here, wherever you are, whatever day, whatever time. Once upon a time, there was a wise king, and he had two children. They were twins. One was named Marianne, and the other was Frederick. And the twins had reached that age where it was time for the king to decide which of them would inherit the kingdom, so that they could, as he had done and his father before him, enrich the kingdom, develop it, make it fruitful, and as a result to enjoy all of the things that are intended for one to enjoy when they work on developing whatever that garden called their kingdom is. So he knows that what he has to do, and he calls the kids together. When you're a king, you can call a prince and a princess kids. He calls the kids together, and he tells them what he has to do. And they listen attentively. And later that afternoon, when the king announces to not just the court, but the queen and everyone else what's happened, the queen leans over and whispers to him, I know that this had to be a difficult choice to make, because only one side can rule. And let me just stop for a second with that one idea, because only one can rule. Only one can rule. What is divided cannot rule. Only one can rule. But what made you choose Marianne, she asked, over her brother Frederick, who, by the way, she said, it's not that I'm partial to him, but he was already showing great political skill. His ambition was next to none. Why did you choose her? To which the king replied, smiling, he said, well, if you must know, he said, I didn't choose. Well, if you didn't choose, who did? And he said, they did. Now, the queen, not really understanding how could they choose, and when they would obviously both choose to be able to wear the crown, she said, how is that possible? He said, because I told both of them before the decision was to be made that they must be aware, and not only aware, but agree to live under a secret, sacred law that governs all who would rule the kingdom. And again, I pause, because it's germane to this topic. We think of ruling the world outside of us. An idiot can do that, and by the way, mostly our world is ruled by idiots. No, to rule the world begins with being able to rule yourself. And to rule yourself, you have to understand the legion of eyes, all the parts of yourself that dwell within you in the dark that you know nothing of, and that rise up to complain and command and do all the things that these parts of ourselves that we don't know are there do. And when they do, because we're so used to the mechanical relationship we have them, we just basically cave, because we fear, believe it or not, that a part of us may not like what we decide to do. Let that sink in if you can, because it's extraordinary in its implication. So I said, yeah, that's what made the difference when I told them this secret law that governs all who would rule the kingdom, and that failing to do so, meaning to live up to the law, they would forfeit their crown given to them by their right of birth. The queen is listening without being casual, wanting to understand, what is the king getting to? She says, and? He said, when I explained the condition required, Frederick grew angry, threw a tantrum, and stormed out of the room. Well, what did Marianne do? She bowed her head and said she would gladly accept the terms. And so she was given the mantle, not as a reward, but as a reflection of the higher understanding she had already gained, that freedom without service is illusion. That freedom without service is an illusion. Everybody wants to be free because they believe somehow or other if they can get the world and everyone around them to serve them as they imagine they are deserved of, they'll be free. And no one is further from freedom than someone who looks to others to complete or otherwise give them what they think is missing from their life. That is not freedom. That creates attachment and dependency. So I trust I have a little room to talk to now. I'm not in my little house. I trust you can see this.
Yes.
Freedom without service is illusion. Now, the queen says, please refresh my memory. I don't understand that entirely. And the king says, well, you may not understand it, this law in words per se, because you can say it in many different ways, but here is the great law that Marianne agreed to embrace and that Frederick summarily rejected. You might want to write this down at home if you're inclined. This is the great secret, sacred law that makes a person a king or a queen, not in this world, but over the realm of their self. Whenever you are asked to place the needs of the kingdom above your own, you must do so regardless the personal cost. Whenever you are asked to place the needs of the kingdom above your own, you must do so regardless the cost. Now, don't think for a split second if it is occurring to you that I'm speaking of something related to this particular body of work or the relationship that I have with the people around me, the students. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm pointing to something that we're going to look at in great depth together today that has to do with a certain parable that Christ told that I'll get to in a moment. Whenever you are asked to place the needs of the kingdom above your own, you must do so regardless the personal cost. And it would seem natural to us, for one, because nobody likes the idea of being subjected to anything or anyone else's will. It would occur to us that, well, all right, sir, and this happened. You'll see exactly this thing happened in this parable that I'm going to tell you that Christ told. Okay, well, what's the kingdom? Because you define the kingdom and then you've got me, don't you? First, you have to assume that anything about you is wanted, and it's not. And next, that you understand what this kingdom is, which is the whole purpose of this talk, and our relationship to it. Transition, nice deep breath. All of creation, nothing in creation exists without serving something. There wouldn't be creation without this constant reconciliation between what is above and below, between the will of heaven and the will of earth. The will of earth is intended to be subjected to the will of heaven, but not as something dominating it, but as something through which it's able to discover its own nature and then go through the perfection of being reborn, which is what happens when what is lower subjects itself, is obedient to the will of what is above it. So it isn't really a question, and I really like this because even if you're not aware of it and you are sincere as an aspirant, it disarms so much nonsense. It isn't a question of whether or not you're going to serve or I'm going to serve. You can't live in this world without serving something. It's a law. So the question of free will, which is what we're always bucking the unwanted moment with because it's not what I want, it's not how it's supposed to be, the question of free will becomes moot What becomes important is, what is it that I serve freely or not? Because for the most part, we don't serve anything freely unless we believe it's going to free us up from something we don't want to be in servitude to. Checking back with my room. Yes? It's nice to have people to talk with again. It is. I sit in that little room by myself, looking out. I'm hoping a dolphin will swim by. Do you agree with me? It's not a question of whether or not we'll serve. We will. But the real question, further still, is what is it? Who is it that we serve in any given moment? It seems silly to us, a question like that. Who is it that I serve? Because on one hand, I know who I serve. I serve myself.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, how's it going? What are you dishing out on a daily basis to yourself and everyone else around you? And you know the answer. We're as likely to sit in some kind of dark stew, figuratively and menu-wise, than we are to understand that our life and the way it is because of who it is that we believe we have to serve if we're going to be happy. When everything we do to make ourselves happy always makes what we're serving unhappy when it's not quite right. So here's the problem. Most of us reject this whole idea of being subjected to anything that runs counter to whatever we've imagined exists to serve us. Now, I get it. I've talked long enough now in this world to realize that many people go, well, I don't think people exist to serve me. I serve sandwiches at the Goodwill place. You don't understand. I sit there over that hot pot of soup till I'm sweating. How can you have a problem with any human being, no matter what he or she does, unless you believe that whatever it is that they're serving to you in that moment isn't exactly what they're supposed to serve you because it doesn't satisfy a demand or attachment that you came into that moment with? This is for everybody. It's slippery, isn't it? Isn't it slippery? I tried to talk, was yesterday Saturday? I tried to talk about this yesterday, how slippery this thing is. You no more seem to get, and by the way, you no more seem to get your hands on the truth than it's like some fish and you're in a canoe and it's out of your hands. It's gone. Why? Because you can't get your hands on the truth. It's impossible. You can only hand yourself over to the truth. And in that, what is true, what is light, what is good, gives you the revelations that help you discover where it is that you're trying to create an identity born out of some idea that you have about yourself and your relationships. And it becomes evident soon enough. And in this instance, why I'm going through this little tangent here is because we have come to believe, and I'm asking you to see this. It does no good if you don't see this. When he, she, this, them, they, that, when something doesn't go the way I want it to go, doesn't my resistance, doesn't your resistance prove to you that you have the right to resent or reject that person, place, or time? Isn't that what resistance says? I'm right. I never question what it is that's causing the resistance because my reality is scoped by where my attention goes that fixes the problem outside of myself. And you didn't get the the memo, I'm perfect, therefore you should subject yourself to my will. Am I hitting some of the, hitting a few nails? But here's where everything changes. Because I said a moment ago that there must be another kind of service and it must be given freely, or we don't receive the crown that we're intended to give, but that the crown in receiving it requires service, requires sacrifice. I know this sounds overtly Christian, and I have no problem at all. I love the Christian religion. But this is not the Christian religion. These are the rules of life that were painted in our heart just as they were revealed 2,000 years ago, so that I don't have to rely upon a belief, but rather I can enter indirectly into relationship with that which revealed it to start with. And why reveal something like that? What a ridiculous idea to human beings as they are today. I have to serve if I want the crown? And what does the crown represent? Power, possession, authority? No, the crown represents the right to rule over myself because I can see through the light of that crown. And by the way, it is a crown of light. Everything physical is a representation, a manifestation of something spiritual. The crown, even the crown of thorns, is a form of light because it is only worn by the individual who begins to see the necessity of giving him herself up for the sake of something greater than themselves. So let me keep going. Christ often spoke of this light of the divine, that we, now listen, in understanding the light of the kingdom is not separate from the kingdom that it reveals. The light of the divine is not separate from the divine that is revealed by that light. What does that mean? The beauty of the orchid sitting outside this window is not separate from the light that reveals it. No light, no orchid. End of story. No love, no kingdom, no love in this world, in this time. These are the rules that govern our relationship to life. So to understand that we are here to serve this light, because in serving this light, we are being served by that light and given what we need to be in relationship with it. And there's no other way to achieve that relationship. Men and women who believe they love God, love Christ, love Buddha, Moses, whatever it is, they don't love that. They love the feeling of themselves when they profess that love. We're going to talk about what does it really mean to serve willingly the kingdom, so as in that service that must be accepted in spite of personal cost. I'm going to say it again, in spite of personal cost, that man or woman understands and agrees to that. This service to this kingdom, this divine light, is inseparable from participating in it. Just as I participate in the beauty of an orchid or the tropical forest, or I see my friend do something that makes me respect them, you cannot see and experience something outside of yourself that is not revealed as an aspect of yourself in the same moment. It is impossible. So nothing that you see and experience is separate from the nature of the seer. What we're looking at is, what is this experience? What is going on? And much to the topic, how do I change this experience I keep having where I'm always struggling with something? So here we get to the parable that's similar to the story I told you about why Marianne was chosen over Frederick. Where did Frederick go wrong? No, Dad, this is my kingdom already, okay? So get in line. I can rule the armies. I can have the gold mines. I can have all that stuff. It's mine. You're messing with me. Are you kidding? I should have said this. What Frederick said, are you kidding me? We have that reaction, don't we? Are you kidding me? When anybody does anything we don't like, are you kidding me? We don't say it out loud as a rule. But the sarcasm and the tones that usually follow prove the evidence of that feeling like you are subject to me, not I to you. Christ spoke of this presently unseen relationship that we are intended to have with what amounts to, and for the purpose of this talk, an invisible compassion. I stop for just a moment with those words, with an invisible compassion. Do you know what the word compassion really means? Strangely enough, it's fairly similar to the word patience in its original meaning. Patience meant, in the original meaning, to suffer yourself. Compassion means to suffer with all. With this passion do I experience you this moment. Not the passion of, I don't want you, I don't like you, not now, get away from me. but a passion that understands that whatever we are participating in this moment, we are doing this together, or I couldn't experience this summary rejection. We don't think to ourselves that rejection proves similarity. Write it down. Rejection proves similarity. How does rejection prove similarity? Because what am I rejecting? Am I rejecting you? Or am I rejecting what you bring up in me? And that's all I can reject. You can't reject a human being without first rejecting the revelation of similarity. Now look, let me slow down. I know we already sit in pretty stern judgment of ourselves to begin with, don't we? All of us miss the mark all the time. Sometimes don't even aim. just, I'm already on fire, leave me alone. But that's okay. I think if I were to be honest and say the thing that I'm the most grateful for after this for me started over 60 years ago, it's to start understanding that one of the first things that has to happen to a person if they're ever going to know anything about the divine is that they have to become a real human being. And we're not real human beings yet. Real human beings don't hurt one another, and if they do, they're terribly aware of what they've done, and it changes them on the spot, not retrospectively. Because everything begins with being able to see what's true, and we're conditioned so thoroughly in this world that we're brought into, so much pain and demand and ambition and all the things that are dangled in front of us, that it never even occurs to us that so much of the darkness we live in is because we are literally participating in the world that it comes from. But the world it comes from doesn't call ambition or the things that we do darkness. It calls it light. And it says, here's where you must do. Here's what you must get. Here's what you must have. And because we don't know better, we do it. But by the grace of God, now listen to this paradox. By the grace of God, suffering appears. How else would I ever know that what I call the light is darkness? How else would I know it? I would never know if it weren't for the grace of God. But you tell somebody, especially who has no understanding of themselves, to equate the idea that the suffering that's revealed in me is due to the grace of heaven, then you're going to get a fight, because for the minute I have resistance, the minute I want to fight, I know what it is that I have to fight with and who has to be subjected to my will or else. So Christ talked about this whole business in the story, this idea of compassion with the Good Samaritan. I've been making notes on this particular parable for years. This Good Samaritan, for those of you who don't know Western scripture, it's really fascinating. First of all, I always thought that a Good Samaritan meant a happy-go-lucky fellow who happened to have kindness. That's not what a Samaritan is at all. Back in the day, it was around 617 BC, for those of you that are history buffs, that the Assyrians conquered the Israelites. And when they conquered the Israelites, they settled in that area. And the Samaritans were the people who, instead of staying true to the Jewish traditions, married in and amongst the Samaritans, because that's who conquered them. And so not only did everything become mixed up, but the Samaritans were, in quotes, pagans, and everything about their life was not orthodox. And by the way, what a world. If you don't believe as I do, you need to die. Well, do you not understand when you punish someone for not believing what you believe, for acting as you believe they should, are you not putting your heel on their neck? For their own good, I might add. So here he is, and he tells this story of this Good Samaritan. Now, ever so briefly, the story of the Good Samaritan is that Christ said, once upon a time, there was a man, and he was lying beaten and bloodied on the road. And by him walked, and this is not incidental, because who is listening to Christ but the Pharisees, the Levites, who were those who interpreted the laws of the Pharisees, the Jewish tradition, and a host of other people, and a lawyer. You wonder why lawyers get the grief? I'm about to explain it to you. So he's talking to these people, this Good Samaritan, which immediately would put up flags back in the day, because why in the name of God would Christ call a Samaritan good when by and large the Jewish tradition loathed the Samaritans? He said, a good Samaritan stopped when everybody walked by this man lying on the road. And not only did he stop, but he attended to this man, healed him, and then carried him, not to be missed, took him to a place in an inn where he could be further healed. Now, why did Christ tell this story? Because at a certain point, precedes the story, he was asked, how does one find the kingdom of heaven? How do you get in? What do I have to do? And he said, if you want to know the kingdom of heaven, because it was one of the disciples or even the lawyer might have asked, he said, you must fulfill the two great commandments. And the two great commandments are, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength and all your mind. And equal to that is love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he said. And this is when he told the story, because the lawyer, trying to provoke Christ, said, okay, sure, smarty pants. Who exactly is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Now, you know why he was asking that. Same reason we ask when you say, I must serve the kingdom. Well, whose kingdom must I serve? I don't want to deal with the overview of it. I want to know specifically, who is my neighbor? Specifically, who should I be subservient to? Because that's how our mind works. I'll agree to serve you, to be true and kind and loving to you until... And then the moment that you're not as I need you to be, because you're serving an image of myself, then I will suddenly show you parts of myself that I didn't even know were there. And by the way, that you're not to judge yourself for. Because the revelation of these punishing parts as they appear is how you're given insight into a dark nature that wants nothing to do with understanding the content of itself. So he says, well, who's my neighbor? And Christ then goes through this story of the Good Samaritan, proving, if you will, that this wasn't, the Good Samaritan is not a tale of morality. We tend to think it's the Good Samaritan morality tale. You should be like the Good Samaritan. It's not a story of some prescribed behavior. Rather, it is a prescription for revelation. And the prescription for revelation sets the stage, as this entire story was meant, to reveal the possibility of a higher level of consciousness. The Good Samaritan represents the awakened heart of a human being. It represents the awareness in a human being that sees itself in the suffering of another human being. Oh, please, God, help us to see that. Please help me to see that. Anytime you're around someone who's suffering, there is a summary rejection of their presence. Is there not? Am I making this up?
No.
There's all these dialogue that goes on about myself and them and this, that, and the other, and I believe that that it's me talking to myself. An awareness that sees itself in the suffering of another. That's why the Good Samaritan couldn't walk by. Because in the moment when he saw that person laying beaten on the road, he knew the pain of that person. He knew that that person needed help. And how did the Good Samaritan know that? Listen, in spite of the personal cost of interfering with where he was going on his way to Pilates and meditation and shopping. They had that back in the day.
Yeah, sure.
An awareness that sees in another that the suffering in another cannot be separated from their own. I hold here for just a second. I make a deep wish when I reach certain pivotal points in a talk. Please, that I might always be aware of what another person is feeling. Not so that I can adjust my behavior. That's what we do, isn't it? Don't we adjust our behavior according to what we're picking up from another person? We call that sharp. No, that's mechanically dull. because I'm not the one picking it up. I'm not the one measuring it. I'm not the one comparing it to whether or not it fits with what I want. In that moment, something is ensuring that it remains in place instead of something showing us something that's already in place and that's punishing us and everyone else for the relationships it produces. Now, nice deep breath. How am I doing on time? Nice deep breath. Listen to this. If that's true that I've just described, as Christ described, every story was that. He said, let those of you who are without sin cast the first stone. What was he saying? Take a look. If you've never done anything at all like this, go ahead, throw the stone. I'll give you the stone to throw. But the moment that light of awareness, which is what Christ represents, I am the light and the truth, I am that which reveals to humanity the content of their consciousness, so that in that revelation they can be released from the mistaken identity. So what's it getting at? What's behind these parables? And here's what it is. I was about to say in a nutshell, but you probably already think that of me anyway. There isn't one religion, true religion, that doesn't allude to the fact that one way or another, it even says specifically in Western culture, that we are made in the image of God. We don't know anything about that. Because the idea of being made in the image of God is so much more than anyone can imagine, or for that matter, wants to know. Why? Because made in the image of God, made in the likeness of that being, we are not only a spark from that great light and life, that great light and life is our life. And within that light, as I've said to you 1,000 times now, it should be incredibly clear that we as human beings have this, and this is a favorite phrase of mine, I don't say it enough as far as I'm concerned, we have this infinite capacity to realize perfect similarity. Infinite capacity to realize perfect similarity. What does it mean? What does beauty is in the eye of the beholder? What does that mean? It means in that moment, there's no beholder separate from what the eye is holding. It means that the beauty and the beholder are a singularity, not a place and a person having the experience of beauty, a person who becomes beauty himself in that moment because he is made in the image of what is beatific. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. So we're created for this, the capacity to realize this similarity. And don't we just love that similarity when we're busy enjoying nature? Listening to music. Have you ever felt, given yourself over to music? Yeah. You're not thinking about it. You are the strings on the piano. You are the orchestra, all that moving through you. And that's much truer than I can get into in the time that I have left. There isn't one thing, one color, one energy that will ever pass through you that you don't have the corresponding part that will move in concert with that, so that it's possible when you see this, eventually you will, that you yourself become the all. But not the all like, I am God. The all who understands the gift of knowing the all requires you realize what all wants to show you about yourself. And that's where we get into a problem, if you understand it. Because I love the idea of beauty, beholder, yeah, that's great. Harmony, harmonious person. But in that exact same law is hidden something that most human beings loathe to consider. And I've been alluding to it, haven't I? So is it true that suffering and our awareness of it are one? Suffering and our awareness of it are one. We don't even think our own suffering is ours. We place the source of our suffering outside of us. In our past and a future that's coming and that we're afraid of. In the way that person responds to what I've said. To the traffic that doesn't understand when I go out in my car, the streets are supposed to empty themselves. I mean, all of that's built into this mindset that wants everything perfect, because when it's perfect, it's perfect. But when there's something painful, nope, that really has nothing to do with me at all. True or not? So here's the secret. In plain sight. And honestly, it's something that I one day you'll see it. There is a part of us that fears this more than death. In fact, it fears this idea more than death because to see it as true is the death of a fearful nature. Not only does everyone suffer, but everyone's suffering is our own. Can you see that would be the only way there would ever be peace on earth?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what Christ's life was about?
Yes.
I will take on your suffering. Now, I don't know whether Christ had to say, God help me. Father help me, Abba. But to understand what I'm describing to you, you really will know what it means. God help me to be and do the good that I know is true, instead of remanding myself over to the parts of myself that always push their way to the forefront and tell me I'll be free if I can just imprison you in the cage of my demands and beliefs. Everyone's suffering is our own. And how do we know that's true? Because I never want you to believe a word I say. I've said this 1,000 times, if once. Never believe a word I say. Is it evidential or not? And how do we know it's evidential? Look at the world. What is all of it? And we're all part of it. You can't separate yourself. What is the greed, the ambition, the wars, the violence? What is all of that other than if I can just get you in the right place doing the right thing at the right time, I won't suffer anymore. And so I will castigate you. I will create a war in order to possess what you have so that when I have it, I won't be afraid anymore. And it really doesn't matter what happens to you. I'll throw you some bones. I'll rebuild whatever I destroy. And that's exactly what happens in our life. Now, I'll stop for again a second. I get this, and one day you'll get it too, so you can understand. You would almost have to walk through this world in slow motion, using every last part of yourself to be aware of everything around yourself, so that in that awareness you would know not just what you were entering into, but what you were bringing with you as you entered into that moment that might be creating the condition you blame on others. Now that seems impossible, doesn't it? And for a human being, it is impossible, but not for God. Not for the Christ. Not for what is true. That's our hope. And it's not in things seen because you can't see it. You can imagine it, but then you're dead in the water. But you can begin to see the need for it, which is what this talk is about. So, yes or no, is not the whole world constantly trying to distance itself, control, or otherwise outrun the suffering of the individual, the country, the world at large? And yet, paradoxically, because that's what's so beautiful, paradoxically, this truth that we don't want, not just about the world. You might go, yeah, I see that about the world. This truth that we don't want reveals a gateway to the very peace that we seek. The very thing I don't want to see reveals the gateway to the peace that I seek, because it isn't I who doesn't want to see. It isn't I who rejects or summarily resists a condition. There is an I in me, there is a part of me, there's no question. This consciousness is predicated on that principle of separation. But the possibility of understanding that begins with what? And this is why, how am I doing? This is why I'm not going to get into the quasi-spiritual crud, but this is why it said it takes so long, like 7,000 lifetimes, to realize oneself. Do you know why it takes that long, whatever that time period may be? And doesn't it sometimes feel like it's 7,000 lifetimes just in my 70 years? Yeah. We don't see the pervasiveness of suffering. We see the people and places as the cause of that pervasiveness. That's how it goes on and on and on. So we must see the pervasiveness of this suffering not as an idea, but as part of an undeniable revelation in a part that we all play, even though we don't want to profess or admit that. Then we can begin to understand something of the nature of compassion. Why? Because what did the king say to the daughter and the son? You have the right to inherit this kingdom, as did I from my father. But the right comes with responsibility. And the responsibility is to agree that no matter what the cost at the given moment, even a personal one, you must put what is good and true above yourself. You must do that if you want to wear the crown. So I'm describing to you something that, as we recognize it, I'm talking to you now, well, how do I come to this moment? It's built into it. The nature of compassion implies similarity. How can I be compassionate? If I'm mechanically compassionate, if I'm compassionate because Jesus says I should be compassionate, I don't know what compassion is. I'm compassionate if I am in that moment because the Christ, the living light within myself, is showing me that I'm not separate from this person who's sitting here in pain. And then in that moment, it doesn't have to go through this transition of time where all this description takes place about all the things Christ and every man who ever understood this goes through. It's instantaneous. I pick up the cross. I carry it as best I can. And at least I can see that I don't pick it up. At the least I can see that, because even that's a healing shock, isn't it?
Yes.
So we're not talking about compassion as some form of pity or an ideal that we should live up to. It's what happens when we start to see by a divine light that each of us live under and labor under what amounts to a misunderstanding of our suffering. A misunderstanding of it. What is your understanding? I'm asking you who are watching and listening. What is your, in quotes, understanding of suffering? And we know what it is. I understand my suffering even before I know exactly why I'm suffering. Then my reaction makes it very clear to me that I'm suffering because of you, this, that, or them. I understand that. And don't you dare argue with me about that, that same nature says. Because I know. And what do I know? I know that if you weren't who you are, if they hadn't done what they did, I'd be happy. So the solution that I understand in that moment is to destroy all comers. Get them to at least, listen, an idea I really like. Don't most of us want at all times to have people understand us? Isn't that part of the thing? Yes. I want you to understand me. What is compassion? I wish to understand you before I want to be understood. Wanting to be understood implies conflict. If you don't understand me the way I think about myself, then we have a problem. But the minute that I can understand, in quotes, that what you are doing is going to help me understand, then things can start to change. Why? Because let's take a real example of this. We have OMG moments all the time, don't we? It can be the smallest thing. I was sitting here thinking about this talk example this morning. Hello, sweetie. And my wife wasn't feeling good. And she called me. We're in different rooms, different parts of the house. I don't feel good. I'm sorry. What can I do for you? Do you have any orange juice? No, but I have tangerine juice and it's really good. Would you like some? Yes. I said, all right, well, let me know when. Now? Do you understand? Now? And so out the window goes the compassion because I've got something I've got to complete on the timeline I want to, and suddenly you're asking me to do something that's not really, this isn't how God wants it, in case you didn't know. Isn't it true?
Yes.
Now, what if that weren't visible? What if one actually believed in that moment the person was responsible for interrupting the importance of the flow of mind? What if a person actually could see that, what takes place? Then you serve and subject yourself to the needs of another in spite of the personal cost. Why? Because you're not subjecting yourself to the needs of the other person. You're subjecting yourself to the need that the light of that revelation is showing you is good and true. And what happens when you do that? You transcend that selfish order of yourself. It is illuminated. When we justify what is dark in us, does the light justify what is dark? Never. So that when we find ourselves justifying ourselves, we're taking the side of something that will never know anything about compassion, but that will always be on the side of considering others as the source of conflict instead of a possibility of using that relationship to discover what we're talking about. I got to go on. So here's the way it goes, the drill. You do this, you ask me that. And the first thing that happens is some form of resistance. Follow the bouncing ball, okay? Yes or no? Resistance. Yeah? Now, the minute the resistance is there, I don't have to go looking too far for the answer to what has caused that resistance. It's just built into it. Yes? So I have the answer without ever asking a question. It's subtle, but you need to see it. I know. I didn't ask who did, what did. I know. I know the answer. And the answer is out there. And the solution is separation, rejection, resistance. And that's the answer to the question that was never posed to me. Now, as working men and women who want to know something of the life of God, of the Christ, now we must learn to ask the question ourselves instead of accepting an answer to a question we didn't ask. I'm going to give you that question. How else can we come up with a new answer unless we formulate consciously a new question that is free of the instantaneous judgment that preceded what was given to us as the answer? So the exercise is this, and now I want you to blend everything we talked about, the story of the king and Frederick and Mary Ann, the story of the Good Samaritan, all this blends into this. We must, and the two great commandments. We must remember to ask ourselves a question that fulfills those two commandments at once. What are the two commandments? How do I love God first and foremost? And how do I love my neighbor first? Because that seems like such a stretch, honestly. Mm-hmm. And it is. From the bulk of humanity, it's almost an impossibility. Fortunately, things are worked out in another order of time where, for the most part, we must do our part to ensure that for ourselves and all that will be part of our life and that will follow will have the same opportunity to see these truths we're talking about. Here's the question in the moment where we're filled with what? The answer born of resistance. So that all I see is the answer and the relief connected to doing what I must to free myself from you. Write the question down. This is the new question that delivers a new answer in the form of revelation. A new answer in the form of a revelation, not imagined, not desired, and in some ways far from being desirable, but necessary for those who want to be a part of another order of being. Here's the question. What is in my heart right now? What is my heart full of? What is my heart full of? Can you see in the moment when you are instantaneously not just resistant but negative, that your heart is full of the judgments and realizations for why, rationalizations for why you feel that way? Can you see that? Yes or no?
Yes.
What is my heart? What is in my heart right now? What is it full of? And what is my heart full of if I don't like the way someone's looking at me? What is my heart full of? What is it? I'm asking you.
Judgment, criticism.
Well, yeah, actually it's full of me, yeah, but it's full of resistance because you aren't looking at me with the proper respect. It's full of negativity because I think that you are in a foul state, and because you're in this foul state, my only solution, the answer to your foul state is, if I can't control you, get away from you. That's the answer. Now we're saying, no, that is not an answer. We already know that's not. The new answer comes in a new question. What is my heart full of right now? And I can tell you what it's full of: selfishness, self-love, and whatever the nature of leave me alone is. That's what it's full of. And can someone who is full of leave me alone, who's full of don't bother me, go away, can someone like that ever know compassion? Please, I want to make such an important point. Can they ever know compassion? It's impossible. It's impossible. And listen to this, because this is the inside story of the Good Samaritan. I'm working on this in a new book. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but you see, you can't be compassionate to someone or something outside of you until there is something compassionate within you towards yourself. It's impossible. The Good Samaritan wasn't a story of someone laying beaten on the road and someone stopping and helping them. The Good Samaritan is the unfolding of a relationship between opposites, where in comes this living light, this Christ, and understands who is suffering is not separate from the one who understands that suffering. And that's inside of us. I'm suffering. I'm suffering. I need administering. I need it. I need help. But I never am in the place where it's already being given. I'm always looking outside of myself to someone to administer it to me. Some pleasure, some power, something to come along and save me from this pain. Instead of understanding the whole thing is set up for you to understand that as you do outside, you do within, and you cannot do outside until you understand within. It's impossible. But here's the rub. One more rub. And then we'll get to the key lesson, okay? I see these things inside of myself. Let's go back to this morning. I'm working. I'm working on what I think is important, and I think it is important. But what's more important in that moment? Trying to incarnate in verbiage what is true about love and compassion, or being the instrument of it in that moment? What's more important? And we know what the mind does. It doesn't want to suffer itself.
Right.
It wants to suffer glorifying itself when something messes with it. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So in that same moment, here I see this selfishness. Now, did you know when you judge yourself, you are glorifying that nature? When you, let's say for a second, oh God, I'm the worst person in the world. I better get up and do something to prove that I'm not the worst person in the world. Well, guess who's acting? I mean, the action may be good. It might be necessary. It may be all I can do. But who's acting? Fear. So the minute this judgment comes in to seeing what your heart is full of, you've lost the revelation and the light that revealed it to you. But when you can see the judgment as part of that revelation, then you begin to separate the wheat from the chaff, and you actually start to understand that whole thing is designed. Not one element in it isn't taking place so that you can perceive what you have never been able to perceive before. And that's the paradox. Perceive what? Perceive where it is that I'm in the hands of a nature that will never know anything about wearing the crown because it's too busy living out the kingdom it's made for itself, which is hell. In these moments, again, this judgment, in this moment where you see this nature rejecting, resisting, not wanting, I'm too important, I've got too, when you see that, and then you become aware of all that's in your heart. What's in my heart when I'm like that? Leave me alone. Have you ever had this thought? I'm already in so much pain. Every human being has. I know we think we're special, but we're not. I'm already in pain. Please, no more stuff to do. No more things to deal with. No more people to be around. Leave me alone. You're dead. But you take the sensation born of that resistance as the proof of some supernal self that's better than everyone and everything else around it. So in that moment of that awareness is the awakening of the Good Samaritan, because the Good Samaritan is the embodiment of this living Christ, of this living truth. And then you have a chance to do what? At least see yourself walk by. Instead of walk by in your righteousness, which is why everyone else walked by. Levite's not going to help a man on the street who's not of the same religious calling. So everything that's fractional and divided and dark in the world is an expression of this nature that never understands that everyone that it sees suffering is inseparable from the self aware of it. Let's have the last of these. I got to get to the end. This is kind of a summary of it. I had to skip a little bit of some ideas that I had, but you'll see where this works. You ready? Read with me. In our darkest hour, it is the light of awareness that shows us, no matter how deep or real may seem the darkness that surrounds us, it is powerless to keep itself from eventually being used to glorify the light that reveals it. In our darkest hour, it is the light of awareness that shows us, no matter how deep or real may seem the darkness that surrounds us. And it does seem real, doesn't it? It is powerless to keep itself from eventually being used to glorify the light that reveals it. Darkness didn't create itself. Without light, there is no darkness. And because darkness is the absence of light, the moment that light appears in the heart, in the mind, or in any room, no matter how dark for how long, everything is revealed in it. And in the revelation of what has been concealed is the beginning of healing that nature that has kept from itself, and you and I accordingly, the suffering that it engenders, and that it needs to continue so that it can continue to prove to itself that somehow it's separate from the world, that it's blamed for its pain. Let's take an ever so quick short break. We'll come back and have questions or comments, and we'll have our dialogue online. Over to you, Doug.
All right, thank you, Guy. I just have a couple of brief announcements while we're taking a break. If there's anyone here listening, that would be good. We do meet tomorrow night for those in the Wisdom School to study these ideas, and it'll be from last Wednesday's talk. So if you're coming to that, do prepare yourself for that and see what you see in your life about these principles, as Guy just talked about today. This talk that Guy just gave, which is chock full of things we can practically use in our lives, is going to be on Friday night. And that's another study group. We have the study groups so we as students can be able to see it in ourselves a little more deeply. And then it's not just a book on the shelf. And then, of course, there's, everyone on here will get notices about what's going on. As you can see, Guy is now in they call it the captain's house in Florida. And they are working on setting up a video station there, and it'll continue as cases get better and better. So that allows, I think there's 3 or 4 students there now. And so it's kind of nice. So that's what we're doing. That's what they're doing on the Florida side of things. Guy will be broadcasting from there, I assume from now on, pretty much. So now let's go ahead and get into the questions and answers. If you're on GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand by clicking on that little hand icon, looks like that. And then you're in the queue. I see Irene and Jill are already in the queue. And if you'd like to do that and you've never spoken, I can't tell you how important it is just to raise your hand and just, even if it's a word of gratitude. And if you've never done that before, just do it and you'll see something different about yourself. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can write in a question and Kate will get it to me. So Guy, we have 2 written questions and we have 2 people in the queue. So let's go ahead and start if you're ready. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, we'll start with Irene.
Hello.
Hi, Irene.
Hi, Guy. How are you? I love the talk and it just amazing timing. I call myself selfish because for a number of reasons, but what's going on with me at the moment is I know sounds funny, but my dog, as you know, passed away in July. So I spent the last 3 days crying my eyes out, feeling sorry for myself. And what reality gets to me is that I should let him go, and I can't. And then I go to your talks, and I think so much about what you say, to be in the moment and the spiritual side about everything. And I feel selfish instead of just being grateful that I had 13 beautiful years with him. And so I'm drowning in sadness. And I think that's all I really want to say.
You know, what you're drowning in is not sadness. You're drowning in time. You're drowning in a nature that only knows to experience itself through a memory first that it brings up for its sweetness and then turns into something that's poisonous. Love never began, it never ends, and I'm not trying to wax eloquently here, saying that one wouldn't grieve the loss of someone or something that they love dearly. Far from it. I'm saying that we have to be somewhat suspicious of being preyed upon by a mind that, for instance, I was just thinking a moment ago, here I am, I like to play golf. And even though I know the truth of it, I hit a bad shot, and I'll hear a voice as clear as day go, "You idiot." Now, who's talking? Who's telling me I had 13 beautiful years and all the rest of that, other than something that, one way or another, wants me to believe that there is an intelligence, a love, a kindness, all of that crud that's other than who I am in that moment. So that if I go, "You're an idiot," and then I agree inwardly, the next thing I know, I'm resisting the next shot because I'm full of resisting what may take place according to that mind. The same thing's playing itself out in you, Irene. You're being set up. The problem is that the great personal cost required to transcend this interior pain is that you're going to have to see how Irene sets you up. How she calls you to look at something, and then no more do you get called to give attention to it than you suffer the flip side of what you were called to attend to. And then you get caught up talking to yourself about that. And then it doesn't stop until you wear yourself out. And then a day later, a week later, you and I know the drill. Up it comes again. The dog passed away in July. Unless I'm mistaken, we're in November. Grief is not meant to be lifelong. It should be deep, it should be swift, but it must be clear that there's something in us that when there's something that we love dies, there's no question there's a kind of hole that appears. And the hole is the absence of the familiar object that we derived our familiar self from, the pleasure of it. And now that hole is there with nothing to fill it. And so we look at pictures that we take of people. We look at things that we treasure, not because the thing itself is valuable, but because how valuable it is to me, that it fills me up with myself when I can look at it and then be dragged through the alley where I get beat up. Again, I'm not saying not to love, and far from it. I'm saying that when we understand the nature of love, we will never suffer when it disappears in its physical form. Are you there? Do you understand some of what I've said? Or did she get muted?
I muted her. There she
Thank
is.
you. Thank you, Guy. Yes, I understand completely. Thank you very much.
Yes, now go to work.
Yes.
Go to work, practice it. Don't think I'm going to practice this perfectly. Please let me see something about this. You want a good little exercise? The next time it comes up and starts to drag you into that dark place, just say to yourself, is this place good for me or not good for me? That's all you have to do. And you'll see, well, this can't be good. I'm suffering. So suffering says it's good. I'm here. I'm present. I know that that suffering's not good. I'll have nothing to do with you. And then you lay it down and then watch how she'll pick it up again. Then you'll have some new understanding. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Guy. Karen is here and she would like to speak. So I'm going to give her my chair.
All right.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Karen.
My question is, this hit me very strongly during this talk. When someone says something to me where it hurts my feelings, I flip into poor me or victim.
Or I'll get you later.
Or I'll get you later, but I pull myself back and it's clearly just hurting me.
Yeah, there's a retreat.
There's a retreat and a kind of a stubbornness.
No, not just stubbornness. Something in Karen walls her in. Mm-hmm. Nothing gets out because all there is the love of myself in that moment. Because that's all I'm thinking about. That moment brings up in me nothing other than the constant consideration of how, why, and this shouldn't be like that. Why are they that way? I'm not like that. They shouldn't be that way. And the more thought I have, the more I'm woven into some kind of strange dark nest where the only thing that hatches is enmity, hatred, or some plan to make the person sorry for what they did. Can you see that, Karen?
Yeah, no, I see it.
All right, well, stop it.
So when something like this happens, how does one stay out of that? Just see it?
You're asking me, how do I stay out of a dark closet filled with skeletons that are banging me around with old bones?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, let me think. I see that something's, yes, and dare to walk out of it.
Okay.
I see that something's doing this to me. My heart, on one hand, what is my heart full of? Is it full of any kind of happiness, any kind of joy, any kind of compassion? Maybe that person said what they said to me because they're hurting as much as I am, or they're as afraid of this relationship as I am. So they're walling themselves off. So what happens when you get two people who wall themselves off? Do you have a relationship? Or do you have a condominium called conflict? Walk out of it. Dare to walk out of it. At least set that as your intention. Not to pretend it's not there. What is my heart full of? I'm telling you, you ask yourself that question, you invite into your life a light that will not only help you heal a relationship with the world around you, but with the part of you that's producing the pain to begin with.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Guy, why don't we read one of the questions, written questions next?
Okay.
This is from Kim, and I think Kate would have that. This is a short one from Kim. And she says, both my adult son and sister are in an active addiction to strong drugs and alcohol. I fear for their lives. Any personal guidance from me would be appreciated.
I hope that I can make this clear enough so that you can see the point. It's a short personal story. 17, 16, right around that age, not legally, but my father knew the owner of a very fancy schmancy hotel in Santa Monica, California, called the Del Mar. And I became the lifeguard. And part of becoming a lifeguard was some training, and I was taught something that is hard to believe. And you know what's hard to believe? Is that a person who's drowning will drown you with them. So that you have to be incredibly cautious, even as you're being incredibly active to save their life. When they're in that state, they don't know that you're there to save their life. They actually see you as part of the problem. You're interfering with their resistance to their relationship they have with the ocean in that moment. So you learn what it means to approach. You learn what it means to help someone. And you also learn that if a person's going to drown you, you don't have any responsibility past that point other than to do your level best to see that they're saved. It's exactly the same thing when it comes to people with addictions. 100% the same thing. My son, my daughter, I do love you as best I understand what love is. And I'm willing to go to the end of the earth if you're willing to come to the end of what's destroying you and our relationship. And after I've done that 2 or 3 times, if the person insists on drowning, there's nothing I can do. And if I've been pure and true in my effort, if I've done the best that I know how, given what I am in that moment, then in spite of all the voices that are dragging me back into that relationship, and by the way, not to save that person, but to save me from seeing myself as someone who doesn't want to go through abandoning that person. At some point, there is a requirement that you do that, otherwise that person will continue to drag you into their life. They're not going to drown you, but they will see to it that your life is wasted on something that never could be saved to begin with. That's my answer. I don't have any other answer.
All right, Guy, let's go to Jill next. She's online here.
And by the way, Jill, before you come on, as I said with the Good Samaritan, it's an interior story first. So is what I just described about your relationship with an addict, an interior story first. I must do everything within my power to help me see and understand this addictive nature that can't wait to take thought that turns out to be tormenting, that can't wait to try to figure out a plan to save me from a pain I'm in the moment. I have to see that the addiction to the sense of continuation in time. The addiction to the continuation of my familiar sense of self in time. Because until one dies to that nature, that time self, that nature will continue to keep you in the throes of time, serving it without knowing what you're doing. Now we can go on, Doug.
Hi, Guy.
Hi.
So now that you say when you're talking about addiction, I have a friend who has an addiction, and she's in an abusive relationship. And I tried like 2 or 3 times, to really get her to understand what was going on at the best that I could help her. And then came to realize that she didn't want my help. And I tried to look at myself and see, like, okay, this is time I have to pull away. I can't do this anymore. And I don't know, that's as far as I got with that. But
Well,
I just felt like it was right to do that.
yes, look, I'm not here to tell you, or anyone for that matter, what to do. Far from that. I'm here to do the best that we can to shed light on something that is a source of suffering. So here
Yeah.
I am, and I have a friend, and she is has an addiction, and then you went on to say, and she's in an abusive relationship. If a person is in an abusive relationship, that is the addiction. Codependency is as much an addiction as is the one dependent on that relationship, dependent on that drug. So if I'm in a relationship with somebody and they're in an abusive relationship, and I say to them, Henry or Paul or Mary, whatever, I don't know, can you not see what's going on here? I'm not telling you what to do, but surely you must have seen this. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. And one day I'm not going to do that. One day I'm going to set the record straight. I'm going to say no more drugs, no more alcohol, no more whatever it is. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to mean it. And then I say it, but I don't mean it. And the reason I can't mean it is because I'm too dependent on that person for my sense of self. Because just like losing the dog, I can't lose that person that I resist. I can't lose that relationship that I'm judging all the time and hoping it gets better, because who will I be without that? Do you remember the story? What did the king say to the son and daughter? You must agree, in spite of personal cost, to the greater service, to the greater truth, if you will, to the kingdom of light. You must agree to that, in spite of personal cost. And that's what we never do, because we don't want to pay the cost. And what's the cost? Me as I've known myself in this relationship with this person. Me as I've known myself as someone who's socially acceptable or not, whatever it might be. You cannot know God, the real life of God, until you have absolutely agreed to be alone. Not as a personal choice of trying to escape something, but as recognizing that until you are completely honest with yourself and what that inevitably strips away from the image you have of yourself, you are not going to be alone, because you need the company of your own thoughts and the company of others to keep that addiction in place.
Yeah, I see that.
Well, now I see it. What on earth shall I do with it? What on earth shall I do with what I see is true? That's where the rubber meets the road, Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it does. Hit the road, Jill.
Okay.
All right. And Jill, no more heaviness. No more heaviness. Jill walks around carrying some weight. No more heaviness. Set Jill down. SJD. Write down the initial. Write down the
no
initials.
more heaviness.
Yeah, no. Write it down. Put it on your refrigerator, your mirror in the bathroom, on your pillow at night, so you don't lay down there and sink with all these thoughts into the covers. No more heaviness. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I got it.
All right.
Thanks, Guy.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. I think you've told me many times, no more Doug.
Yeah.
Carrying him.
SJD.
So we have a French gentleman who wrote in, Guy, with a couple names, Guillaume, I think it's Guillaume. And he says, hello, I have been reading Guy Finley for over 20 years. Recently, due to a stressful situation, I immersed myself in his works again. But I don't understand a few things having to do with negative thoughts and feelings. First, what does it mean to learn to detach oneself from negative thoughts and feelings? Does it refer to any thoughts linked to negative feelings? For example, thoughts of fear, anger, or hatred? Or does it refer to negative thoughts on the one hand and negative emotions without thoughts on the other? Second, what is the difference between a negative thought and a negative feeling? Or is it that negative thoughts necessarily lead to painful feelings? Thank you for your answer.
Hi. So I think I can, God willing, address all of your questions with a single understanding. You see, we start with this unbelievable and yet somewhat deliberate misunderstanding that is part of the conditioning of humanity. My parents, their parents, all the way back. They say the sins of 7 generations. 7 not being exactly 7 generations, but 7 being the number of completion of something that recycles itself and keeps going and going and going. And what is it, this misunderstanding that's at the root of the question you've asked? That it's my negative thoughts and feelings. That's the misunderstanding. They are not your painful thoughts. Once they appear in your consciousness, you have a responsibility to see that they are reconciled. But to the next part of my answer, only a fool tries to detach himself or herself from their own negative states. Who's detaching? Who's there? Well, the me that knows I shouldn't be that. Well, if there's a you that's there that knows you shouldn't be there, why are you there to begin with? And it never dawns on us. We have no power to detach ourselves, listen, through imagination from what is imagined. I imagine I am other than these painful thoughts and feelings, that I shouldn't be having them, which proves that I'm other than them. And once I have the proof by that pain that I shouldn't have them, then I set about studying spiritual things so that I can have the power to detach myself from what I've imagined is me. Do I need power to separate myself from what? Do I need power when I wake up from a bad dream? I'll tell you a true story. You know, the only bad dreams I ever have now, maybe once a year, has to do with playing golf. I swear to God. And it's never like painful. It's always that I can't get to the tee box on time. It's hysterical. I'm actually aware of the dream while it's going on. I'm wondering, how long does this have to play itself out? So what I'm saying to you is, I imagine that I am other than these painful thoughts and feelings, and now because I shouldn't have them, I have to figure out how to get rid of them. And then you spend your life with all these questions that all of us ask about, is it a thought, is it a feeling, what should I do, where does it go? When here's the simple, short solution. You can't detach yourself from what you first imagined and derived an identity from. But you can welcome the light that shows you it is imagined and that you're identified with it. And then you don't detach yourself from anything. You are like the wheat from the chaff, separated from the illusion of that self. And then you know something about the path to liberation. I'm off.
All right, Guy. Can I tell you my bad dream that I always have?
Yeah, yes, I want to hear it.
Mine is, as you know, and some people know, I used to direct musical theater where they had an orchestra and a cast and an audience. And I would show up on opening night and I'd never seen the score. I can't find the score, which is the music. And I'm running around backstage, and then I finally wake up. So I can't tell you how many times that's happened.
It's really all the same dream. It really is. Back in a long, long time ago, Doug, when I was a performing artist on a recording with a record company, and we'd be on stage and stuff like that. Back then, still in my 20s, every once in a while I'd have this dream where I was on live television. And they start playing the music, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember the lyrics to the song. And I go, uh-oh. Then he did, and I'd make stuff up, and I'd start sweating in a dream, and I'd wake up.
That's where scatting comes in, Guy. Do, yeah.
Yeah, do. Yeah, okay. Anyway, let's go on. It's fun.
All right, so here's a question from Annette. It's I think the last one we have, Guy, so we'll see if anyone else wants to jump in here, but otherwise, Annette asks, how does a Christian view of leave one's burden at the altar and the blood of Christ will cover it fit into your teachings?
They're not my teachings, and I just spent an hour talking about it. What is the altar? Is the altar this place where I've got images of whatever in God's name I put up there so that when I look at them, I can feel religious? Is the cross with Christ on it the same as understanding what happened in order for him to assume that place? An altar represents a moment in time that is a relationship between the one searching for what is divine and the divine that calls the person to it. That's where they meet. The altar is not a powerful place. It is a representation of a relationship. That's what an altar is. It's never meant to be anything other than that. Human beings have turned altars into gods themselves. So that's part one. Part two, leave my burdens at the altar. That's what I described. I must bring this sense of myself that must insist and have and do, and recognize that in that moment of relationship, something by the grace of God is showing me this me that brought what it brought to the altar. Do you know that that's why they started sacrificing in the old days? Rather than the cost of personally giving something up, they would slaughter an animal and use the blood as proof of the sacrifice. So the creature was sacrificed, not the consciousness that created the conditions that required it. And it ran deeper than that. It had to do with blood and all the rest of that business. But that's a altar two. And the blood of Christ will cover it. How in the name of God did we get to a place where we talk about the blood of Christ while we're busy saving our own life, saving what we call our blood? You want to know, Annette and everybody else, and I'll dial it back so as not to produce unconscious resistance. At some point, you won't ask questions about what about this about Christ, and what about that about Buddha, and what about this and that and the other about these religious enlightened figures. You know why you won't ask questions anymore? Because you'll understand if you want to know anything about Christ's life, you have to assume the Christ within yourself. You want to know anything about an awakened mind, you're going to have to see through the mind that sleeps and dreams itself being awake. And the personal cost is what is required if a person wants to know anything at all about that, about those kingdoms that dwell within him and their endless elevation. That's all I have for that. Did you say something there, Katie? Was there anything else?
I'd like to speak.
Oh, Katie wants to speak.
I'll come up.
Katie's coming up. I can't get out of my chair, and I can't put you in my lap. That's for sure.
That wouldn't work.
No.
All right.
You can't see, but Katie's right here.
And in the coming weeks, we'll set it up so that people
For sure.
can come up and be seen. I just wanted to highlight the part, that you said in the talk. I don't know if you said this about the commandments in particular, but this is what I heard. The commandments are not about prescribed behavior, but about a prescription for revelation. And just the difference between that, like here, I spent some time with family this past week, and what a difference it is when I'm not sitting there in conversation with my mother, looking for some kind of prescribed behavior of what a good daughter would do,
Or to elicit from her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But instead, looking to awareness that sees itself in the suffering of another, which is the prescription for revelation.
And it produces at once a necessary stillness when required. It produces an action that you can't generate from yourself because there's no ambition in the relationship
Right.
in the moment. It's totally different, but it requires personal cost.
Exactly, and all of this goes together, and then having a different understanding just of the word compassion, again, not as prescribed behavior,
Right.
that this is what I'm supposed to do because this is what a good person would do.
Yes.
But as being within that field of awareness that brings you into not only seeing your own suffering, but in seeing your own suffering, you understand the suffering of another as a reflection of that.
Yeah, I love that. That's the whole, in a way, the whole of the work, the two commandments, the old, I forget, Isaac the elder, if I'm not for myself,
Right.
then who will be? If I'm just for myself, what am I? If not now, then when? He was actually bringing those two commandments together. Of course, I have to be for myself, but if I'm just for myself, what kind of human being am I? Can I see these at once?
Yes.
And then, and may it be so, the purpose of our work on this planet, as you know, is somehow or other to introduce into our mind and the mind of all those who would bear that cost, this beautiful innocence, this beautiful innocence. I'm not trying to get something. I'm not trying to do something. I'm here to witness something so that in this witnessing, what seems to be separate can be reconciled not just to each other, but to the God that makes it possible for me to see the need for this reconciliation, right? And then then we can spell out these words. We will. I'll drop dead talking probably. But that's it.
When it comes to participatory life.
Participatory, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Okay. Please. Eric is visiting. The spirit of Eric is in the chair.
I don't know if it's biblical, but it may be in the Bible. Something about honoring thy father and thy mother.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the 10 Commandments.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the death of my father recently, I've had to honor them
Yes.
by taking care of my mother in a way that I never would have thought I would have to do.
Becoming the man of the family, quite literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lost my train of thought.
I've had to.
But even though Eric would never have wanted that,
Yeah.
he wants to be on the island. I'm looking at Tobago lately.
I get it.
It's shown things that it never would have.
See, never.
Right, and which may be the meaning behind honor thy mother and thy father for that very purpose.
And I don't want to interrupt you, so if you have more.
I think I'm done.
And then I'll take it one step deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Then the death of my father serves a purpose in his death that I could have never imagined.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's not loss. But as I grow and gain understanding, so does my father, because we were never separate to begin with. This is the mystery of time. We believe that somehow or other there's my father, there's this time, and all the rest of that. And when he dies, something's happened so that we're separated. No, when he dies or anyone dies, you are not separated from them other than by the fear or the rejection of the responsibilities of honoring, in quotes. Then the honoring of your father is the same as honoring the fact that in one respect, he gives up his life so that you can have one. Can you not see? I struggle so hard to say these things because we're so bent on, but it's so beautiful. Then nothing dies. Everything is progressive. Everything is perfected. Everything is part of God's life forever, showing how it reveals itself in time, but seemingly because we see all these little sections of our life in time, we don't know what to do with something like that. If my father's death served me immeasurably. Did I love my father? Yeah. Did I want to sit by my mother's side when she was dying? God, no. But what it showed me proves that was not separate from the perfection of our consciousness. It's not Eric's consciousness, it's not Kate's mother's consciousness. It's ours. His suffering is my suffering. Yeah. It's breathtaking. One day it will literally, you know how they talk about the fear of God? It was never fear. The word was awe. And one day you will be in awe of how unbelievably perfect is this entire realm that we see as imperfect because we're always trying to take something from it to make our life perfect. No, our life is perfected by participating in this timeless life and understanding our real role in it. Is anything else to do, Douglas?
Nope, we're all good.
Okay.
Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, I'll see everybody Saturday. Do your work. Remember, what is my heart full of? Ask the question. See the answer come in and see the quality of it, then ask the new question. What is my heart full of? You answer that honestly, not with thought, but with seeing. That seeing is the beginning of transforming your nature.